After a long-awaited outdoor vacation, 10-year-old Lily goes camping in the mountains with her beloved grandparents. Everything looks perfect. Silence, forest, river. One evening, Lily sends her mom Sarah a simple selfie. A smiling face, a campfire in the background, and her grandmother next to her. But her mom accidentally zooms in on the background and sees the silhouette of a figure in the bushes that looks unfamiliar. And what will be revealed later will reveal a long-standing secret connected with the area, the missing people, and the grandfather himself. After what seemed like an eternity of longing for the restorative embrace of nature, 10-year-old Lily finally found herself on the threshold of adventure. The promise of a sunlit escape, deep within the rugged mountains, had been the highlight of her summer. Her parents had worked long and hard, and while her busy mother, Sarah, was busy with work and responsibilities back in the city, Lily's heart was set aflutter by the prospect of spending several days surrounded by whispering pines, gently burbling streams, and skies so vast they seemed to hold every secret of the earth. This time, it wasn't her parents' company she would have. It was the cherished companionship of her grandparents, whose love had always been the warm, guiding light in her life. The journey to the campsite was itself a chapter of wonder. The family's old station wagon, its paint chipped and its interior weathered by decades of memories, rolled steadily along winding roads that slithered through golden meadows and past craggy outcrops. Lily pressed her face against the window, watching the world change from the concrete sprawl of the city to a landscape of rich, earthy colors, embroidered with wildflowers and crowned by towering trees. Every bump in the road, every glimpse of a distant mountain peak, delighted her curious spirit. With every mile, the burden of everyday life seemed to lift away, replaced by an exhilarating sense of freedom and possibility. At last, they arrived at a clearing perfectly nestled at the edge of an ancient forest. The campsite was a picture of simple perfection. A small open field flanked by a cluster of cedar and fir trees, a gentle river winding its way past the site, and, in the distance, snow-capped peaks glistening under the warm caress of the sun. It was as if the landscape had arranged itself into a scene designed especially for moments of quiet reflection and joyful play. Tents were pitched in a harmonious cluster, and a communal fire pit lay at the heart of the site, its unlit embers awaiting the evening's ritual of shared stories and softly glowing flames. Lily's grandparents, affectionately known as Grandma June and Grandpa Henry, were overjoyed to be here. Grandma June was the kind of person whose laugh could lighten the heaviest heart. Her sparkling eyes and gentle smile made the world seem kinder. Grandpa Henry, with his weathered face and calm, assuring presence, carried a quiet wisdom about him acquired through a lifetime of love and hardship. Their hands, though lined with time, were still ever ready to scoop Lily into a warm embrace or guide her fingers over the gnarled bark of a centuries-old tree. To Lily, they were not merely family. They were her guardians, her protectors, and her beloved storytellers whose memories bridged the gap between past adventures and the bright promise of the future. The first days at the campsite passed in a blissful blur. Mornings began with the songs of birds welcoming the dawn and the soft murmur of the nearby river, as if nature itself was whispering secrets meant only for those who would listen. Lily and her grandparents spent hours hiking along mossy trails, collecting smooth, colorful stones and marveling at wild mushrooms nestled among the ferns. They picnicked on sun-dappled clearings, shared stories beneath the vast canvas of the sky, and even spent quiet moments simply sitting together in comfortable silence. Every detail, the crisp mountain air that filled her lungs, the rustle of leaves underfoot, the playful dance of a squirrel scampering across the path, added to a sense of enchantment that wrapped around Lily like a cozy blanket. On the first evening, as a gentle twilight draped itself over the campsite, Lily's excitement was palpable. That night, after a delicious dinner of warm soup and freshly baked bread, the family gathered around the campfire. The orange glow of the flames cast dancing shadows on their faces as they shared laughter and the magic of personal recollections. The air was filled with the aromatic blend of pine, smoke, and a hint of nostalgia, a reminder of simpler times when the world was vast and every moment carried the promise of a new discovery. With her cheeks flushed from the cool night air and her heart light with wonder, Lily clutched her little digital camera, a birthday gift from her grandparents, and smiled widely into its lens. Without a second thought, she snapped a quick selfie, framing her beaming face against the background of the softly crackling fire and the reassuring presence of her grandmother standing close by. It was an ordinary picture in every way, a testament to the joy of the present moment, a memory in the making. But in that instant, it became a silent promise of a remarkable adventure yet to unfold. Unbeknownst to Lily in that moment of innocent exuberance, the serene and picturesque panorama she captured would soon send ripples far beyond the boundaries of their peaceful retreat. For now, however, all was well, and the mountains whispered a lullaby of tranquility to those who cared to listen. The campsite, the forest, and the gentle river held no secrets on that first night, only the hope and promise of togetherness, of family bonds that could withstand even the coldest winds. As the embers of the campfire slowly dimmed into the velvet darkness of the night, Lily snuggled into her sleeping bag with a heart full of wonder and anticipation for the days ahead. Little did she know that this enchanting getaway, crafted from nature's own music and the simple joy of family, would soon become entwined with mysteries from a hidden past. A secret so deep and haunting that it would challenge the very fabric of their idyllic escape. That first evening at the campsite was a dream come true for 10-year-old Lily. Bathed in the soft glow of a crackling campfire and surrounded by the gentle murmur of the forest and the nearby river, she felt as if she were living inside a storybook. With Grandma June cheerfully by her side and Grandpa Henry's warm laughter echoing in the background, Lily's heart brimmed with innocent joy, excited by everything around her. From the fragrant scent of pine to the whisper of the wind through the trees, she couldn't stop smiling. In that moment, she clutched her little digital camera and snapped a carefree selfie that captured her radiant smile, the dancing flames of the fire, and the comforting presence of her beloved grandmother beside her. Back in Chicago, Lily's mom, Sarah, had been eagerly awaiting news of the getaway. When the notification of a new photo appeared on her phone, Sarah's heart leapt with delight. She hurriedly unlocked her phone and opened the image, expecting nothing more than to see her little girl's beaming face set against the nostalgic backdrop of nature. And for a fleeting moment, that is exactly what she saw. Lily's joyful grin, the colorful firelight flickering in the background, and Grandma June's gentle smile subtly lit by the warm glow. But as Sarah's finger instinctively swiped to zoom in on the photo, to admire every detail of her daughter's pristine expression, a jarring anomaly emerged from behind the comforting scene. There, partially hidden among the dark silhouettes of the surrounding bushes and the shifting shadows of the trees, was a distinct outline. At first, it appeared as nothing more than an odd smudge, a quirk of light and angle. Yet, as Sarah pressed the zoom button further, her pulse quickened. The blurry shape began to take on a more defined form. A tall, imposing figure, unmistakably human, lingering at the edge of the campfire's light. Her eyes, which had been fixed on Lily's smiling face, now darted back and forth between the cheerful foreground and the ominous figure creeping in the background. The man's silhouette was shrouded in darkness, almost as if he were a ghost woven into the fabric of the night. And then came the moment that sent a chill racing down her spine. As Sarah adjusted the brightness and contrast of the image, the shadow's eyes became apparent, two small, reflective points that seemed to stare directly at the camera with an eerie, unsettling intensity. At first, Sarah's rational mind hesitated to accept what the photo revealed. Perhaps it was nothing more than an optical illusion, a trick of the light, a stray branch, or a play of shadows. Yet, the clarity of those malevolent eyes spurred her to re-examine every pixel and every nuance of the image. The more she scrutinized the background, the more convinced she became that this was no ordinary distortion. There was an undeniable, inexplicable presence captured in that unfocused darkness, a presence that did not belong among the warm memories of her daughter's camping adventure. Frantic with worry, Sarah immediately attempted to reach Lily via phone, tapping the screen repeatedly and speaking urgently into the device, as if distance itself could somehow bridge the gap of her mounting dread. But the call went unanswered. A subsequent text message was sent, and again, there was nothing but a long, unnerving silence on the other end. The beautiful tranquility of that first evening was now marred by the creeping shadow of terror. Every unanswered ring made Sarah's chest tighten further, her mind racing with countless worries and unsolved mysteries. Questions began to flood her thoughts. Had something happened to Lily and her grandparents at the campsite? Was the dark figure a sinister intruder or perhaps someone associated with the many whispered legends of the mountain? A legend of a presence that had long haunted those remote trails? The image, once a simple keepsake of a joyful evening, had morphed into a cryptic clue, hinting at an unsettling secret buried deep within the wilderness. Unable to shake the growing sense of foreboding, Sarah stared at the photo again and again. Each review uncovered an extra detail, a nuance in the way the shadow pressed against the foliage, the almost imperceptible glint from those mysterious eyes, as if capturing not only light but also the lingering sorrow and anger of an untold story. The crisp night air back in Chicago suddenly felt cold and uninviting as her mind conjured up visions of isolation, forgotten memories, and dangerous secrets hidden in the dark corners of the mountains. As Sarah's anxiety mounted, she resolved to take immediate action. But in that instant, the comforting hum of a busy city phone line and the lack of immediate connectivity left her feeling stranded, alone with the disturbing evidence on her screen. With a trembling hand, she saved the image and closed her eyes, praying that it was a simple mistake, a glitch in the light or an overactive imagination fueled by worry. Instead, a deep, instinctive unease settled in her stomach, heralding that this seemingly innocent selfie was the gateway to a much larger mystery. Panic clutched Sarah's heart as she stared at the ominous details in the photo. The unsettling image, now securely saved on her phone, burned into her mind with unrelenting urgency. Without a moment's hesitation, she decided that she had to alert someone, anyone, who could help unravel this mystery. Her trembling fingers dialed the number for the local police station, and as the line rang, her mind whirled with an avalanche of questions. Who was that figure lurking in the background? Had Lily been endangered? What secret did those piercing eyes hold? After several agonizing rings, a gruff voice finally answered. "Chicago Police Department. How can I help you?" The officer's tone was businesslike, entirely devoid of empathy. Sarah's voice, raw with worry, spilled out the account of what she had seen in the photo. She explained how Lily's cheerful selfie at the campsite had taken a sinister turn when a shadowy figure emerged among the trees. A silhouette, detailed by the ominous eyes that stared directly into the camera from the dark. Her words, though laced with panic, conveyed an urgency that echoed the deep-seated fears of a mother desperate to protect her child. The officer listened in silence, interrupted only by the static of the phone line and his occasional curt interjection. Sarah's impassioned plea soon gave way to a disconcerting and clinical response. "Ma'am, based on what you've described and the image you mentioned, there's nothing on record to indicate any immediate threat. Could just be a trick of light or a natural shadow in the woods. I suggest you remain calm. Your daughter is with her grandparents at a reputable campsite. We routinely receive similar reports without any grounds for a police response." His tone was dismissive, and Sarah felt a surge of dread as though her concerns were being minimized. Desperate for reassurance, Sarah tried to explain further, emphasizing the clear shape of a human form, the intensity of the eyes, and the eerie clarity that defied normal optical illusions. But each attempt seemed to fall on deaf ears. The officer's answers grew more curt, and he eventually concluded, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but we have no cause to intervene at this time. If you feel something is seriously wrong, please call us back or report it in person. But right now, everything appears to be within normal limits." The line went dead, leaving Sarah alone with a mounting sense of horror and helplessness. Racked by frustration and fear, Sarah hung up the phone, staring at the dark screen as if willing it to reveal some hidden truth. Her mind replayed the image repeatedly. Lily's innocent smile, the warm, golden glow of the fire, and that chilling figure in the background. Every time she zoomed in, the sight of those unsettling eyes made her skin prickle. The police's lack of concern, and the insistence that there was nothing on record, only deepened her suspicions. How could they dismiss something that clearly did not belong in such a picture-perfect scene? Desperation took hold. With no immediate support from the authorities, Sarah resolved to take matters into her own hands. First, she tried to contact Lily again, sending multiple text messages and even calling over and over, but the line remained stubbornly silent. Nothing was known about the signal in the remote mountains. Perhaps the area had no reliable cell coverage, or maybe something else was blocking communication. Either way, the uncertainty gnawed at her, each unanswered call amplifying her fear that something was terribly amiss. Unable to shake the feeling that danger lurked in the woods, Sarah turned to the only resource she had left: the wealth of online communities where locals discussed inexplicable events. Late into the night, she scoured internet forums and social media groups dedicated to mysterious occurrences in the region. In hushed posts and threads, she discovered rumors that a shadowy figure had been sighted near that very campsite on previous occasions, always accompanied by unexplained disappearances and eerie whispers among longtime residents. One post detailed an incident from nearly 30 years ago, a disappearance of a young boy from those mountains whose case had gone cold, leaving behind a cloud of secrets and suspicions of supernatural influence. Another thread mentioned strange lights in the forest and sounds that echoed softly after midnight. None of these accounts provided concrete evidence, but together they painted a picture of a place steeped in unsolved mysteries, where the boundaries between folklore and reality blurred in the misty darkness. The more Sarah read, the more convinced she became that the figure in Lily's photo was not merely a random trick of light, but perhaps the ghost or a remnant of a long-forgotten tragedy connected to the region. Every detail resonated with the stories of haunting mystery passed down through locals. Lost children, unexplained vanishings, and moments of inexplicable terror that left communities scarred. The police's dismissive stance now seemed not only negligent but dangerously short-sighted. Sarah's anxiety morphed into resolve. Determined to find answers, she considered traveling to the campsite herself. The idea of venturing into the rugged mountains filled her with both dread and determination. Dread for the unknown, and determination fueled by a mother's fierce instinct to protect her child at all costs. But before making any impulsive decisions, she documentarily archived the photo, annotated her thoughts, and saved every bit of online evidence she could find. Every saved article, every forum post, became both a testament to the growing mystery and a potential clue that might one day justify her fears. The scene was now set for a deeper investigation. The serene iconography of a summer camping trip was unexpectedly marred by a sinister presence, and the dismissive response of those charged with ensuring safety only heightened the urgency to uncover the truth. Sarah now stood at a crossroads, torn between trusting official reassurances and following her own instincts, which screamed that something was terribly wrong. With her heart heavy and her mind racing, she knew that the next steps she took might be the only hope of securing the safety of her family, and possibly solving a mystery that had haunted the mountains for decades. Determined to find the truth behind that unnerving image, Sarah's fear and maternal instinct converged into one inescapable resolve. She had to see the campsite for herself. The sterile conclusions and dismissive words from the police department offered her no solace, only a burning need to uncover what lay hidden among the towering trees of the mountain wilderness. Abandoning sleep for the sake of urgent investigation, she packed a small overnight bag with essentials: a flashlight, a digital camera to document any anomalies, a notebook, and a warm coat, and drove toward the region where her daughter's grandparents had taken Lily. The roads twisting up the mountain were narrow and shadowed by dense stands of evergreens, their silhouettes flickering like dark sentinels in the halogen light of her car's headlights. The further Sarah ventured, the quieter the world became. The hum of urban life faded into a whisper as nature claimed dominion. Every mile deepened her sense of isolation, and with each passing moment, a surreal mix of dread and determination rooted her to the journey. Though her heart pounded with anxious questions, she reminded herself that she was not merely chasing ghosts on the screen. She sought tangible evidence, answers that could explain the presence lurking in that seemingly innocent selfie. Arriving at the outskirts of the designated campsite well after dusk, Sarah noticed that the soft glow of the campfire and the gentle murmur of a flowing river were conspicuously absent. The place felt eerily vacant, as if the magic of earlier had been suddenly drained. leaving behind only a quiet emptiness that mirrored her growing apprehension. Pulling her car to the side of a secluded, winding road, she parked in a small clearing flanked by dense foliage. The sound of rustling leaves and the faint hoot of an owl in the distance reminded her that nature was awake, watching, and harboring its own secrets. Before she could venture further on foot, a solitary figure emerged from the twilight. A middle-aged man, rugged and lean, with eyes that held the steady calm of someone intimately familiar with these woodlands, approached her car. He wore a well-worn cap and a faded flannel shirt, and carried a battered backpack that seemed to have traveled more than a few forgotten trails. His presence was both comforting and mysterious, a stark contrast to the foreboding silence of the surrounding wild. "Evening," he greeted in a low, measured tone as he stepped beside her car. "You look like you might be lost or looking for something in particular." His voice, smooth yet tinged with the accent of someone who had spent his life amidst these hills, carried an uncanny sincerity that momentarily quelled the storm of fear inside her. Sarah explained her restless concern. She told him about the selfie sent by Lily, the cheerful image emblazoned with the backdrop of a flickering campfire and a smiling grandmother. But then, with a tremor in her voice, she described what she had seen when she zoomed in. The unmistakable silhouette of a figure in the darkness of the trees, and eyes that glinted unnaturally in the night. The man listened intently, nodding along as if he had heard similar tales before. When she finished, his gaze was steady and his expression turned somber. "Name's Daniel," he said, extending a rough-hewn hand. "I'm a forester out here. I've been patrolling these areas for over 20 years. And let me tell you, you're not the first to mention something strange among the pines." His words fell softly into the hush of the twilight, yet carried an unsettling weight. Daniel explained that the local woods had long been the subject of whispered lore among the residents. "There are stories," he said cautiously, "of shadows moving differently at night, figures that seem to lurk just at the edges of campfire light. Folks talk about missing hikers and unexplained sightings out on these trails. Sometimes I've heard cries or seen something that makes me double-check my patrol route." His eyes darkened at the mention, and he glanced toward the thick stands of trees as if expecting figures to emerge at any moment. Sarah's heart throbbed with both dread and a fragile hope that she wasn't imagining things. "Have you ever seen anything like what I described in that selfie?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel hesitated before replying. "I have seen shapes in the distance, silhouettes that vanish when you try to focus on them, like the wrong kind of shadow that shouldn't be there. And for a long time, there were rumors about a mysterious disappearance around these parts. Something happened so long ago that most have given up on trying to piece it together." As Daniel continued, he recounted snippets of the local folklore, a fragmented history of chilling events shrouded in mystery. He mentioned that decades ago, a young boy had vanished in these very mountains, leaving behind unanswered questions and a legacy of fear that still lingered in the murmurs of old-timers at the local diner. "They say that his disappearance was never solved," he confided. "The area where he was last seen is now a place where many feel something isn't right. There have been sightings, though none that anyone could confirm. But this woods do have a secret, and sometimes they try to tell it in ways no one can ignore." The conversation sprawled over a small clearing behind Sarah's car as Daniel led her to a narrow trail. He paused by a cluster of ancient trees, whose gnarled branches twisted toward the sky like pleading hands. "I've noticed that the forest here seems to hold old memories," he observed, brushing a hand against the rough bark as if to physically connect with its silent stories. "Sometimes the past doesn't stay buried, and one might see echoes of it in the shapes and sounds of these woods." His statement, ambiguous yet loaded with meaning, sent a shiver racing down Sarah's spine. Was the mysterious figure in Lily's photo merely a trick of the light? Or was it a symbol, a ghost of a long-forgotten truth waiting to be exhumed? As they walked along a meandering path lit faintly by Daniel's flashlight, Sarah's anxiety mingled with a reluctant determination. Daniel pointed out several subtle signs along the trail, old, weathered markers, remnants of what might have been primitive shelters, and faint footprints partially overgrown by moss. These signs have been here for years, he noted. Sometimes, when people aren't looking, the forest leaves behind clues that speak of lives once lived here. It's as if the land itself is trying to tell its story. His words evoked an atmosphere that was at once mystical and foreboding, a silent testimony to the fact that nothing in these mountains was ever truly as it appeared. Before parting ways, Daniel agreed to accompany Sarah a little farther along the trail to the edge of the more secluded camping areas. "I can't promise you'll find all the answers you're looking for tonight," he admitted, his tone both cautious and empathetic. "But I promise you this. If there's any truth behind that eerie figure, or if the past is trying to make itself known, then the forest will reveal it, one way or another." Sarah clutched his words as a fragile lifeline. In that moment, the quiet reassurance of an experienced local made the looming darkness seem a little less impenetrable. Standing at the threshold of a quiet clearing where the trees clustered thicker, Sarah took one last glance at the direction from which the unsettling glow of the campsite once emanated. Every rustle of leaves, every distant cry of a nocturnal creature, now spoke a cryptic language of secrets held by the ancient mountains. With Daniel's words echoing in her ears, she knew that her quest for answers was only beginning. The hidden shadow in that selfie was more than a mere anomaly. It was a thread in an intricate tapestry of local mystery, past sorrows, and perhaps a warning that the idyllic image of a family retreat had been tainted by history's dark undercurrents. Deep in the woods, beneath a canopy of gnarled branches and whispering pines, Sarah's search with Daniel took an unexpected turn. As they followed a barely visible, winding trail, the forest's murmur deepened into something that was both eerie and laden with history. The autumnal twilight filtered through the foliage, casting long, trembling shadows along the path. It was on this quiet, forgotten trail that they stumbled upon remnants of an abandoned campsite, a clearing where time appeared to have paused decades ago. There, partially hidden by overgrown ivy and fallen leaves, lay a small wooden marker, its surface rough and etched with faded, barely legible characters. Daniel knelt beside it and, with a gentle yet deliberate touch, cleared away the debris. In what remained of the inscription, Sarah could make out a single mournful line: "In memory of a child lost. Forever in our hearts, 1993. A chill ran down her spine. The year confirmed what the whispers of local lore had suggested. Approximately 30 years ago, a young boy had vanished in these now silent woods, leaving behind a mystery that had never found closure. The marker, weathered by rain and time, stood as a somber testimony to a tragedy long consigned to forgotten corners of local memory. Overwhelmed by the gravity of the discovery, Sarah's thoughts swirled. Who was the boy? How did he vanish without a trace? The revelation resonated with the unsettling details in Lily's selfie. The dark silhouette, those disquieting, unblinking eyes in the background. It was as if the forest had been guarding a secret too painful to forget. A secret that now, decades later, was clawing its way into the present. Daniel, his face a mix of sorrow and quiet resolve, recounted in a low, measured tone the stories he'd heard over his many years patrolling the area. "They say that a boy barely older than Lily disappeared from these woods one summer night back in '93, he explained. Local residents spoke in hushed tones about his disappearance, how he wandered off after chasing something in the dark, and no one ever saw him again. Many believed that the forest took him, that his spirit still roams these trails, a silent witness to old, painful secrets." Sarah listened intently as Daniel continued. For years, search parties scoured the area, but nature wasn't kind to trace a fleeting human footprint. Over time, his case went cold, and the memory of that day blurred into legend. Yet, that marker here, though worn and faded, refuses to let the past vanish quietly. His voice carried a weight of empathy, as if every detail of the old tragedy stirred echoes of the countless unsolved mysteries that plagued these mountains. Drawn to the marker, Sarah gingerly ran her fingertips over its rough surface. It wasn't just a memorial. It was an invitation to piece together a puzzle that history had left incomplete. The realization struck her forcefully. What if the figure captured in Lily's photograph was not a random trespasser, but a spectral echo of that long-ago night? A voice from the recesses of a forgotten tragedy, reaching forward across decades to warn or perhaps to seek justice. They spent nearly an hour in that secluded clearing. Daniel pointed out subtle signs along the trail, faded footprints, remnants of what might once have been a small campfire ring, and scattered bits of charred wood still clinging to life beneath layers of moss. Every element in the landscape carried the weight of memory, as if the forest itself had been quietly recording the passage of sorrow and time. Daniel mentioned that local lore often intertwined with such sites, weaving tales that border on the supernatural, stories of lost children, whose laughter was said to mingle with the rustling leaves on crisp nights, of unexplained lights moving between the trees, and of sudden silences that fell like curtains over the forest floor. In that charged silence, a frail, worn voice joined their conversation. An elderly man, appearing unexpectedly from behind a thick clump of ferns, offered his cautious greeting. "I'm Harold," he said softly, his eyes reflective pools of long-held grief. He had lived all his life in the small town nestled at the mountain's edge and had known the tragedy when it occurred. With trembling resolve, he recounted his recollection of that terrible night. A boy, full of life and promise, had been last seen wandering near this very clearing. Harold recalled that he had been a young man at the time, one of the few who had dared to search in the fading light, only to be met with the inescapable mystery of an unexplained vanishing. "No one knows what truly happened," Harold murmured. "But even now, there's an energy about these woods that speaks of unfinished business. Some believe that his spirit, or whatever became of him, roams these trails, seeking what was lost or perhaps warning us of things that should never be forgotten." Harold's words sunk deep into Sarah's heart. Each detail, every whispered memory of that long-ago event, connected to her growing conviction that the image she had seen, the dark, watchful eyes, the mysterious silhouette, was no random fluke. Instead, it was possibly a tangible manifestation of the past reaching out, a spectral link to a tragedy that had been buried in silence for 30 long years. The quiet, unyielding voice of the forest, echoing with half-remembered pain, urged Sarah to hold fast to the evidence and not let these secrets be swept away by time. As dusk deepened around them, Sarah carefully photographed the memorial and gathered notes in her battered notebook. Between Daniel's somber recounting and Harold's nostalgic lament, a narrative of loss and unanswered questions began to emerge. The peaceful camping getaway that Lily had once eagerly embraced now loomed as a stage where past and present converged, a convergence that hinted at a connection far more complex than mere chance. The boy's disappearance was no isolated tragedy. It was intertwined with the land itself, with the lore of the mountains, and disturbingly, with whispers about individuals who might hold secrets too heavy to bear. With the moon beginning its slow ascent in the ink-black sky, Sarah felt both a deep sorrow and a burning determination. The forest, with all its enigmatic beauty and hidden scars, had once sheltered a secret that now threatened to upend the idyllic picture of her daughter's adventure. The revelation of the missing boy was a turning point, a key that unlocked further mysteries that rested in the shadows of those mountains. And as she retraced her steps, the cool night air around her seemed to pulse with the unspoken promise that every mystery, no matter how deeply buried, demanded to be unearthed. Under the pale glow of a waning moon, Sarah pressed deeper into the heart of the campsite. The earlier bustle of family laughter and gentle camaraderie had long faded into an uncanny, almost oppressive silence. The camp that had once shimmered with the promise of a carefree family retreat now seemed to harbor secrets in every rustling leaf and creaking branch. Determined to uncover the source of the inexplicable disturbances, Sarah clutched her flashlight and smartphone, the beams slicing through the darkness as she made her way along a barely trodden path toward the main cluster of tents. Arriving at what appeared to be the central encampment area, Sarah froze. An unsettling emptiness prevailed where she had expected the warm glow of a communal fire and the gentle murmur of conversation. Tattered tarps and remnants of camping gear lay scattered in disarray, a stark contrast to the welcoming setup she recalled in Lily's messages. The silence was broken only by the distant, rhythmic chirping of crickets and the occasional whisper of wind through the trees. It was in this eerie stillness that she first noticed something profoundly wrong. In one of the larger tents, which should have housed Lily's family, the interior bore evidence of a time long past. Gathering her courage, Sarah approached the tent slowly, her pulse thrumming in her ears. The flap, hanging ajar, revealed not a modern weekend retreat, but a space filled with objects mismatched in time. A kerosene lamp sputtering weakly on a rickety wooden table, faded photographs in black and white stacked on a dusty shelf, and a collection of old journals with handwritten notes dated decades earlier. As she stepped inside, the musty scent of damp fabric and aged paper overwhelmed her senses, and a chill crawled across her skin. It quickly became apparent that this was not the campsite her daughter had enthusiastically described just hours before. Instead, it was a hidden annex of memories and secrets, preserved as if in a time capsule. Among the relics, Sarah's attention was drawn to a very familiar object. A weathered family portrait, its colors bleached by unforgiving sunlight and time. In the image, a man with kind eyes and a gentle smile, whom everyone had always called Grandpa Henry, stood beside a younger version of herself and what appeared to be Lily. But something in the portrait unsettled her. The man's eyes, though warm in memory, held an inscrutable expression that hinted at a hidden depth. As Sarah scanned the room, she noticed contradictory details. Picnic blankets dated nearly 40 years old, utensils and enameled coffee pots that belonged to a bygone era, and letters referencing an event that seemed disturbingly familiar, yet utterly impossible. Her hand trembled as she picked up one of the journals. Its pages, filled with spidery handwriting and cryptic musings, spoke of ritual observances, vows to appease ancient forces, and, most chilling of all, references to the price of preserving our lineage. With each carefully penned line, an unsettling image began to form, one that connected the legacy of this family with a dark secret that rooted deeply in the mountains themselves. A secret that tied in with the decades-old disappearance of the young boy, whose memorial she had witnessed not long ago. Before she could piece together all the fragments of evidence, a creak behind her made Sarah spin around. Standing in the doorway of the tent was a figure draped in shadow, a man whose silhouette was unmistakable. As the weak light fell upon his face, Sarah's stomach clenched with dread. It was him, Grandpa Henry. But the man before her was not the gentle, kindly elder she had known in passing photographs or cherished family stories. His expression was hard and distant, his eyes smoldering with an intensity that belied benevolence. There was a subtle, almost imperceptible tremor in his frame, as if he were burdened by a weight too heavy for mortal shoulders. His voice, when he finally spoke, was low, measured, and tinged with a foreign accent that Sarah had never heard before. "I wondered when you might come," he said, his tone neither welcoming nor hostile, but laden with an unspoken sadness. "There are truths here that must be confronted. Not all that we cherish can remain unburdened by the past." His eyes, momentarily catching the light, revealed a depth of sorrow and regret that chilled her further. "Grandpa, Henry," Sarah managed to choke out, the word trembling on her lips as she tried to reconcile the kindly grandfather from Lily's photos with the stranger now standing before her. "What is this? How could this campsite, this tent, be so old? And what are these journals? Who are you really?" For a long, heavy moment, he said nothing beyond a slow, disconsolate sigh. Then he stepped forward and, with deliberate gravity, closed the distance between them. "There is no simple answer," he began, each syllable weighted with decades of secret pain. "Our family has always had ties to this land that go far deeper than you know. I have protected these mountains and all their hidden stories, for better, for worse. I was entrusted, long ago, to guard a secret that binds us to this place. A promise made in blood and sorrow. I have lived with that burden every day, even as I tried to create a new life for all of you." Sarah felt the walls of her mind crumble as fragments of disjointed memories. Old family whispers, hushed conversations she could barely recall from childhood, rushed back. "Are you saying that you were involved in what happened? That you are connected to the disappearance of that boy?" Her voice wavered between disbelief and horror. With eyes glistening under the weight of unspoken confessions, he answered, "I did what I believed I had to do, at the time, to protect what was sacred in these woods. I swore an oath to preserve a fragile balance, one that demanded sacrifices. I never wished to hurt anyone, but promises made in desperation tend to unravel into tragedy. And now, that darkness has found its way back here, threatening to consume us all. His expression turned anguished as he continued. I have kept my other self locked away, a part of me that the world was never meant to see. Tonight, I fear that secret is on the brink of being revealed. Outside, the wind stirred the treetops as if echoing the turmoil within the tent. Sarah's heart pounded fiercely, oscillating between maternal fear and a desperate need for truth. The man before her was her father's father, her Lily's beloved grandfather. Yet now he seemed to straddle two worlds, a gentle guardian by day and a keeper of an ancient, cursed legacy by night. In that moment, the idyllic image of a family camping trip shivered under the weight of forgotten sins and haunted promises. The evidence in the tent, the faded mementos, and the cryptic journals all pointed to a lineage steeped in mysteries too eerie to ignore. Tears welled unbidden in Sarah's eyes as she reached out to him, both imploring and accusing. "Henry, what have you done?" Her voice was soft, trembling with the pain of betrayal and the longing for an explanation that might explain the inexplicable. He lowered his gaze, his voice barely a whisper. "I have tried to shield you from this darkness, to keep the secret hidden so that you might live in peace. But the past is relentless. It has awakened, and now it stands before us, demanding reckoning." In that charged silence, as thunder rumbled distantly in the mountains, Sarah understood that this family secret, once buried deep beneath layers of time and denial, had now risen with a fierce determination. The idyllic summer retreat had metamorphosed into a stage for dark revelations, where the innocence of camping was inextricably bound with grim duties and destined tragedies. A cold dread settled in Sarah's heart, along with the chilling realization that Lily was still out there, unknowingly entangled in a legacy far darker than she could ever imagine. As Henry's sorrowful confession echoed in the gloom, Sarah knew that she had to act fast. Time was slipping away, and the shadows of the past were creeping ever closer, threatening to engulf not only the sacred memories of the mountains, but the precious life of her daughter as well. Under the light of an early dawn that barely penetrated the thick mountain mist, the long, harrowing night gave way to a fateful new day. In the aftermath of the revelations inside the old tent, Sarah's urgent call for answers had set off a chain reaction that could no longer be contained. Local law enforcement, spurred by Sarah's determined insistence and the mounting evidence, including the disturbing selfie that first revealed the lurking figure, rushed to the remote campsite. With Daniel and Harold leading the way as local guides, a search party was soon organized, their flashlights slicing through the lingering darkness as they combed the area for any sign of danger. The eerie silence and abandoned remnants of the old camp, once seemingly forgotten by time, now became a grim stage for a drastic confrontation with the past. In a clearing, not far from the decaying tent of forgotten memories, the search party detected a soft, muffled sound, a frightened cry that pierced the quiet of the mountains. Following the sound with hearts pounding in unison, they discovered Lily huddled in a small alcove beneath a rock overhang, tears glistening on her face, lost and terrified after having strayed away from her grandparents during the night. Instantly, relief surged over Sarah as she scooped Lily into her arms. The child, though visibly shaken, clung to her mother and whispered incoherently about strange flashes of light, rustling bushes, and a sense of being watched. In that tender, heart-wrenching moment of reunion, it was clear that Lily was safe, but the mysteries of the campsite and the dark legacy it concealed now demanded full exposure. Back at the secluded campsite, police investigators meticulously combed through the relics and journals found inside the old tent. Every faded photograph, every cryptic notation in Harold's recollections and Daniel's commentaries was re-examined in the fresh light of morning. The disturbing documents detailed a haunting legacy. Nearly 3 decades ago, a young boy had vanished in these very mountains under mysterious circumstances. Old witness testimonies hinted at occult practices and unspoken pacts, sacred oaths that promised to keep long dormant, and perhaps cursed, forces at bay. As the investigators pieced together the fragmented evidence, they soon uncovered a grim connection. The missing boy's disappearance, cloaked in local folklore, was intimately entwined with a secret pact taken by Sarah's own family. Photographs, now enhanced and cross-referenced with archived records, revealed that the spectral figure captured in Lily's accidental selfie was not a random trespasser but almost a ghostly echo of that lost child. A symbol of the unsolved tragedy and the sinister bargain that had haunted the family for years. The implications of these discoveries rippled outward with overwhelming force. Under mounting public and legal pressure, the long-forgotten case of the missing boy was officially reopened. The evidence was undeniable. The chilling details captured in the selfie, combined with the decades-old journals and faded family portraits, led investigators to believe that a clandestine ritual bond had been forged years ago between a desperate grandfather and the dark forces dwelling in the mountains. In an anguished confession that broke upon hearing the weight of the gathered evidence, Grandpa Henry, whose gentle countenance in old photographs masked an inner torment, was revealed to have been the reluctant keeper of this ill-fated pact. Bound by promises made in a moment of unimaginable desperation, he had dedicated his life to keeping the secret buried, fearful that its reemergence might exact a terrible price. Yet now, with his hidden life laid bare, the truth could no longer be denied. In a dramatic press conference held later that day near the mountain base, Sarah, alongside local authorities and community advocates, recounted the incredible chain of events, from the seemingly innocuous selfie to the painstaking unraveling of a painful family and communal secret. The photograph had transformed from a cherished memento of a blissful escape into an irrefutable piece of evidence. Its pixelated image, now analyzed frame by frame, had provided the crucial link needed to reopen the cold case, finally offering closure to a community that had suffered in silence for decades. The trial that followed not only sought justice for the missing child, but also aimed to confront the legacy of secrecy and ritualistic darkness that had plagued that serene mountain region. The case became a catalyst for sweeping reform in local law enforcement protocols and stimulated broader public discussions about historical injustices, the right to truth, and the cost of burying painful secrets. As the trial progressed, the community began to heal. Neighbors organized support groups for families affected by past tragedies, and local schools incorporated lessons on historical accountability and the importance of preserving truth, no matter how painful that truth might be. Sarah's brave journey, from a concerned mother scouring digital images in frantic despair to a formidable witness standing against institutional silence, became an inspiring story of resilience and redemption. Every family member, every citizen who had once believed the past was best left undisturbed, now faced it head-on, aware that facing history was the only way to build a fairer, more compassionate future. In the final courtroom scene, as the judge delivered a poignant and transformative verdict that symbolically cleansed the dark legacy from the community, Sarah, holding Lily's hand, listened intently. The verdict included not only reparations and a formal acknowledgement of the long-ignored injustices, but also a personal reckoning for those who had been complicit in maintaining the silence. Among the many documents presented over the course of the trial, the accidental selfie, with its chilling, unmistakable eyes peering from the shadows, was submitted as concrete, material evidence. It transcended its original role as a casual snapshot of a joyful moment and became the key that unlocked a history of cruelty and abandonment. Later, as the courtroom emptied and the final echoes of the judge's words faded into a hopeful silence, Sarah found a quiet moment to reflect. Standing before a modest mirror in the quiet of her temporary lodging near the mountains, she whispered softly, "We have revealed the truth, for our sake and for the lost. Our love has saved our daughter today, and our memory will keep the past from ever repeating itself." In that solemn act, Sarah embraced the full circle of a journey that had begun with a seemingly innocent family getaway, only to transform into a battle for truth and forgiveness. She simply wanted to relax with her family, but an accidental selfie became the key to a terrifying secret. Subscribe if you believe that sometimes a single photo can save a life.